Very welcome. Glad to be here.
Well, hello, Matt. Thank you so much for being here. We've been speaking a little off camera or off the record, and figuring out what we can talk about. And I think you came up with a couple cool ideas of stuff that you're interested in at the moment, and that you've been experiencing in your own life. And also, I think it was really cool, something that we were talking about of this uh, being in contact with like-minded people, having the opportunity or having the decision, to reach out and to contact people that you feel can help you grow spiritually, or like many times people go through. I went through it myself. People go through dark periods in their life, sometimes called the dark night of the soul. Um, depression or anxiety or fear of something, or perhaps um, the death of a loved one, or some kind of other loss. And people might naturally go through a period, when they might feel very lonely, or that they're not understood by the people that they know, and you can feel very lonely during those times, very much. And I
Yeah.
think what you were saying of reaching out, and especially nowadays with how easy it is to connect with people through social media, and then have conversations like this through stuff apps like Zoom and all that. um, I think it's really really important that people empower themselves in that way, so that they don't feel alone, so that they can know that there are other people out there who are uh, just as crazy as yourself,
Yeah.
or crazy in the same way as you are, and that not everything that happens in mainstream culture is supposed to be normal. um, it's not that there is necessarily anything wrong, or that people shouldn't be like the mainstream, but there is always an undercurrent underneath the mainstream of stuff that's really important and cool, and and people don't need to fear be feeling the feelings of loneliness or depression and all that, uh, as if they are strange or crazy or exotic. But it's really normal to go through those kind of periods, especially at
Hmm.
certain ages, certain like when you're around going towards going becoming 30 years old, a little bit before that. It's a very complicated period. There's some astrology involved in that. And yeah, I just wanted to recognize that what you mentioned, because I think it's really important to get the message out there that yeah, that you're not alone. There's people that like what you like. There's community in whatever micro niche, unique thing that you might be interested in. It's just having the courage to get out there and be vulnerable, and open yourself up. For me, it was really hard to start making this podcast and contacting people, and being valuing my own perspectives and thoughts and ideas. But eventually I realized that I needed to do it, and that I wasn't going to it wasn't going to be like the end of me, that there was light
You just
on
had to
the
make the
other.
jump.
Correct, yeah. So yeah, really thank you very much for bringing that up.
Absolutely. And I want to say too that um, I actually do think that even uh, more so, it's important that people are okay being alone. Um, it's super important for anybody um, exploring the mystical side of things, um, becoming involved in the esoteric or the occult, um, any type of these alternative research topics. um, I think by its nature lends it itself to um, the isolation of the individual, and because it's so much of it is um, the personal experience that one has directly, and there or that usually ends up having directly with whatever um, forces or phenomenon or whatever, and and sometimes I think it's hard for a lot of people in general um, to either come out of that isolation where they feel like they've been backed into the corner because of what they've researched or looked into. Um, but it's crucial that people are okay with that, because you absolutely need um, the isolation and the aloneness in order to process a lot of this stuff, in order to move through it. You can't do it by um, you know engaging with 100 people a day, because there's also that energy exchange that happens between people. And if you're an extremely social person, or this kind of social butterfly, and you're out there and you're putting yourself out there, and you don't have that um, process going on internally, really, where you could sit and be alone and meditate through the things that you've been looking into. Instead, if you're, like I said, if you're out there doing the social thing, um, that's detracting away from that kind of work. Um, and you're feeding into whatever energy fields that all these other people are bringing about. But at the same time, uh, a lot of us end up um, with our heads down and being isolated and involved with this stuff, that we forget to look up. And when we do look up, when we do bring our heads up, we realize that, shit, where is everybody? And you know you've either moved past them, or you've moved in a completely different direction. And so that's why it's extremely important to connect with others. And like I was saying before, even like, especially in a non-formal type way, or a non-formal type setting, where it's on the uh, on the presumption and basis of friendship and goodwill. And I just wish more people out there would approach engaging with others in that same way, where a lot of people bring their biases to the table, and a lot of people bring a certain amount of closed-mindedness to the table, because of whatever belief system they carry. And I think to authentically engage with someone, you have to suspend, if you have any of that baggage, you have to suspend that for the time being, and allow for something even and equivocal to happen. Um, so yeah, and it doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but in this alternative community, but the whole um, realm of mental health, um, it's very important to um, be on top of that for yourself, for myself, for anybody as an individual, especially in these kind of topics, because it can take a toll, because you're always encountering things that are going to uh, rip apart your paradigm or your worldview. Things get shattered all the time. And I think um, kind of branching off maybe from that, um, like I was saying a little earlier, um, I started experiencing this kind of thing um, a little before the last time we talked, where it was kind of rearing its head, and where I felt like I almost broke myself in a way, not like mentally, but what I think I was doing was I was trying to, I was over intellectualizing um, things, the work, um, these spiritual aspects of myself, and the things that were clicking and making sense to me, like uh, I was engaging in an intellectual way with it, and it was great. I was um, really, I don't know, I was really stimulated through that, but like it was almost too much, um, where I lost, and I think everybody ends up feeling like this, but where you don't feel particularly spiritual. Um, but you can't feel that ecstasy of enlightenment all the time, and um, you can't always 100% of the time feel engaged with the other. And I think that's what happened to me, and so now for me it feels like I'm at a peak with that, where I don't really feel my spiritual self, where I don't have that. And it might be a seasonal thing too. Um, where I am, it's summertime right now. And so there's a lot more physical uh, activity and physical engagement happening. I'm doing projects around the house, and, all kinds of things like that, where, I'm working with my hands and doing heavy labor type things out in the yard. And while that's good, and I don't mind that at all, um, but it's like the pendulum maybe kind of shifted, and so it congealed with this over intellectualizing, and then coming into summer and having to engage more physically, um, where I feel like that the the shadow, my spiritual side, my higher self has almost taken a back seat for now, and I don't feel a connection at the moment. So um, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, like if you felt that or anything, or
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for opening up. I mean, it's so something so personal, and yeah, of course, I've felt that. And what started coming for me, I mean, I don't mean to say, of course, like obviously, but like, yeah, it's so incredible how much our human experiences are different, and at the same way they're alike. There are certain patterns that can come up for any of us. And I was thinking, first, about what you were speaking before, how easy it is for some of us to be alone, you know uh, at the same time that I was saying before, that sometimes maybe we can feel very lonely, and that can be a very big, a heavy burden for some of us. At the same time, we can really be comfortable being alone, and that could, like you were saying, turn into some sort of a burden, because you forget about everybody.
hmm
And one of the greatest teachings that I've received, um, is that all of this stuff that we're investigating, that we are drawn to, all these subjects, um, the spirit, metaphysics, uh, all of this is only useful and is only worthwhile if we can find a way to bring it back and apply it into our daily lives in some way. Even if it's just entertainment. But okay, yeah, this is entertaining, okay, it's got its place. But especially if we can find a way to improve our lives with all of that. So many times people can get into rabbit holes of all of this, and they're very slippery slopes, because they're so interesting, um, so rich and so full of detail. You could spend a whole life exploring just one of the subjects, and never reach a final conclusion,
hmm
because because in the end, many of these spiritual things, they are not stuff that necessarily can be demonstrated, perhaps scientifically or intellectually, but they can be demonstrated in a subjective level, in an experiential level for oneself. And we should learn perhaps to be okay with, okay, I've demonstrated this for me, cool, that's enough for me, and I've demonstrated it for me because I've been able to put it into practice in my life. I've been able to extract some value from that and improve my quality of life. And you were also talking about how during that period you were and you're feeling a little bit still in this over intellectualizing. I think so. The phrase you used,
Yeah.
which is like I was saying. Of course, it's something that uh, I would say it's kind of a trap, but I've fallen into this trap many, many times, just because of this idea that all of this stuff is so interesting to research and to explore, that one can find oneself a million miles away from where one started, and realize, oh, okay, so I need to return to my center. Many times what happens for me is I'll start a spiritual practice, you know, perhaps some meditation or yoga or whatever, some chanting perhaps, and I have this like several days or weeks or months of continuous practice, and and at some point I'll stop doing it, and then sometime later I'll see how I've gotten off track in a way, and how good I felt while I was keeping up my regular practice, and how different I feel when I stop it. And then I'll somehow I'll find the will to start over, and to at the very start of my process, I was like, you know, it had to be perfect, and if you stopped, then oh no, then when you restarted, it must be on the perfect time, on the perfect day. But I've learned to let that go, and be like, for example, now that you're feeling like more physical, and like you're working more with the body, and you feel perhaps that has um, set you a little bit apart or away from your spiritual
Mm.
work, to try to I've learned to try to integrate the spirit, or to observe and see the spirit in everything. So doing stuff around the house, for example, it doesn't need to be something that is not spiritual, it's just physical, because if we think about it, everything is spiritual. We've had I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I've had experiences where I've demonstrated for myself how everything is spiritual, and and to try to see how, like, the basic practice for me is observing. So if, for example, you feel like doing stuff in the garden, or working around the house, if you're feeling like perhaps you're perhaps you feel like wasting time, or no, this is taking time from my spiritual work, try to look at the mind, look at the work that you're doing, and observe. And just that observing seems like ridiculous, that observing would be a spiritual technique,
Hmm.
but I've had so much from that, and at the same time to allow yourself to feel, okay, this is not spiritual, I'm just doing physical work, and to be okay with that, you know, to be okay with the feeling or the thought, oh, this is just working with the material plane or whatever.
Well, it's
But
the chop wood, carry water.
just exactly, yeah. So before enlightenment, that's the phrase, right? Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Because what changes is just our perception, you know, our perspective of the
Yeah.
world. And the world is might still be the same. And I think I'm thinking also in Buddhism, the cessation of suffering. I think it's got more to do with the cessation of wanting things to be different, and not so much with the cessation of things being uh, the way that we don't want them. I mean, things will still be some like we want, some like we don't, but the stillness will be is something that we will cultivate inside, right?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with you. And like, I haven't stopped. I mean, every little thing, like I'm back inside my head observing and, you know, kind of keeping on the lookout maybe, you know, and I guess maybe part of that is the problem of um, anticipating something external um, to rekindle that connection to spirit. Um, because um, what the over intellectualizing, like I feel did was like cut me off emotionally in a way where I don't feel it inside. I'm it's almost like, okay, I've looked into all this stuff and I've read all this and I've read all that and I've watched this and I've listened to this and I understood it all.
Now what? Yeah.
And then well, yeah, and it got to a point where it just stopped. And even my overall, and I get it's so weird to talk about, but like even my overall interest in all these topics has waned. And like I don't feel too interested in a lot of these things anymore, or at least currently. I've looked into anything and everything you can imagine for the past, you know, 15, 20 years. And um, it's almost like you get to a point and it's like, okay, so what do you do with it? But over the last couple years, it's been really important to me, um, in the sense that it's had a profound impact in how I've processed myself, my emotions, or my relationships. It's been absolutely crucial. The When I really started connecting with um, the work of Carl Jung and Joseph Campbell and James Hillman and Robert Moore and all these cats, um, things like were really clicking, and was I became really engaged with all that, and um, I lost my like a big thing that happened to me is I lost my job last year, and what got me through it was being extremely familiar at that point. I was right in the middle of it all, but the hero's journey and um, all the Joseph Campbell stuff. And I was able to, I still had my um, anxiety and stress from that event happening, but I was able to process it in a way um, where, I don't have to go out and hit the bar and drink and like, oh, drown my sorrows about this or that, or I'm not going to cry about it or whatever. I, I'm the hero in my movie and this is my journey. And so, yes, I have to go through this. These are the trials and tribulations that the hero has to go through. And I looked at it, okay, this is the death of one version of me. Me losing my job is the death of this aspect of myself. So now I have to dwell in those ashes for a little bit and work on that part where I'm reborn and having that self-realization. and trying to come out of that. And it's been between like that point and till recently that, um, you know, this has been, I feel like maybe like all that has been really compressed, and and this this mode that I got into of over intellectualizing and maybe rationalizing things, um, but like in a way where like I was putting everything together and I saw the connections of everything that I was looking into, and I was gaining this deeper insight and understanding that I couldn't necessarily verbalize, but it was all up here and it was all deep in here. But then it, like, I hit this wall. And one of the things that we were talking about before started recording is Steiner's idea of the guardian at the threshold, where there is this archetype standing there anticipating your journey. And this is like you might want to look at this archetype as the, maybe not the final boss, but one of the, maybe like the chief general, to the final boss, you know, at when you get close to the end level. And this art, like, it almost, I wouldn't be able to describe what it looks like or what it, all I know is maybe of what it feels like. And it's like, this archetype came in and pulled the plug, and I'm left there without like any juice left. And I'm like, "Oh, I can't do this." And I've kind of hit these benchmarks before, and it's like you get to a certain point, and then you're like, "What do I do?" Like, and you're in the middle of processing everything, and like how do you even go further? What's next? And then, the trick for me was always, you just keep pushing and you keep moving forward, and eventually that next veil opens up, and then you get that next, you hit the next level, and you're able to absorb everything else. But like this one was like, you know the guardian at the threshold pulled the plug and held up a big stop sign, said, "You're not going any further right now. And in fact, you're not just not going any further, I'm going to push you back." And part of all this has been like almost like I've lost, all of that, um, deep understanding that I was hitting on. It's almost like, I learned to ride the bike, but then I didn't ride the bike anymore, and then I kind of forgot how, and I'm not as good at riding the bike anymore. And that's kind of how it is. It's like, if you don't use it, you lose it. And but I was always actively trying to, um, apply it in my life in some way. But then it was just like, it almost feels like I broke it or something. I don't know how else to really explain that, but
You know what? You mentioned the idea of the pendulum, and I think
yeah.
perhaps you overexerted your intellect, or took your intellect in exploring all these subjects. We naturally we are exploring like the edges perhaps of thought, the outer edges, and sometimes like going going so much uh, into that. Um, yeah, I see that it can overwork our mind, and like you say, the plug gets pulled. And I think it's kind of a way of, because I see recently I've had this like understanding of the spiritual journey, and the journey of growing up and maturity in itself, um, being kind of like steps in a staircase in a way, such as that you're like you're like in a kind of uh, I think of it like in a graph, like you're going up and forward and
Hmm.
up, and sometimes at a certain point you take like a vertical jump, you know, a quantum leap, and you reach the next level. It's kind of what you were speaking before, and then you
Yeah.
continue on this ascending path. But also it can happen that at certain points you get flat and horizontal, and time goes by and it's like nothing changes, what's happening with me, or stuff like that can go on. um, and and perhaps you were in something like that, which like how to put it, like in a way I think it's like our soul, or your soul in your case, um, telling you, or giving you the opportunity to really integrate all the work that you had been doing. Because we tend to think like that the mind is going to get the solution to
Yeah.
whatever our question is. And I'm almost 100% sure by now that the answer, if there is an answer, is outside the realm of the human mind. But it's actually in the heart. You know, you mentioned the feeling, and it's hard to explain, because how can you explain that the answer is in the heart? You know, it's kind of a
Yeah.
strange thing to say, especially to people who might not be very much in contact with their heart, with their feeling, with their emotion. But what I can say is that many times the hardest thing for us to do is to feel whatever we need to feel, whatever our soul needs us to feel. And we will take every possible distraction, and we will go on a tangent for years and decades in order not to feel something. And when we are escaping from feeling something, I know of cases that people they they go crazy. They um,
Yeah.
you know, to avoid something, the mind will create an entire justification, so as not to need to look at the thing. And the crazy thing is that when you actually find the courage to look at the thing, it's 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 like the big shadow of the monster, and it starts coming closer and closer, and the shadow starts getting smaller and smaller, and eventually it's like a
Yeah.
tiny little insect or a frog. And yeah, I've had my own uh, bouts with things that I didn't want to see, but behind it all, I already knew what you know, I already knew that, but I was like avoiding looking at it, and um, I was using all this intellectualizing and all this research into esoteric subjects as an excuse to not look inside, because in a certain way I was telling myself that through exploring all of this I would find the answer without like bypassing the feelings, you know, like without
Hmm.
needing to go through the darkness or the hard uh, moldy, it's not moldy really, but what appear to be like dense and but it's, I think it's one of the, you were mentioning the guardian of the threshold, and I think the guardian of the threshold is like, I think it's connected with our feelings. Because I think I mentioned before we started recording that I've encountered what I would call the guardian of the threshold in the aspect of fear and um, lack of self-worth or procrastination and self-doubt, stuff like that. And because it's like the perfect way to protect the throne behind him or something
Yeah.
is like,
Exactly.
okay, I'll make him feel something that really hurts or that's really difficult to feel, and he will only be worthy of continuing on this quantum leap if he or she decides and has the courage to look within. And when you do, it's incredible, because you look back and you think like, wow, how hard it was for me to make that choice, but here I am. And there's this video from Alan Watts, and at a certain point he says like, and the worst thing that it can do is, oh, it feels horrible. It makes you, perhaps it will make you shake, it will make you sweat, it will make you cry, but at the end it's not something that kills you, right?
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's definitely, I think, the one thing it can't do is kill you. You know, it's there to, you know, a lot of the times you encounter it unexpectedly, that but that guardian of the threshold always knows you're coming. You know, it's just a matter of when.
it, it
And
it's waiting in the past, it's already there, just
yeah.
waiting for the travelers. And you know, we don't need to go at it alone. You know, we can think of it as a game, you know, the guardian of the
Hmm.
threshold, and think like you can take certain items with you that can help you overcome that. There are certain practices that one can do regularly, or try to do regularly. And even there's like in games, exactly like in games, there's potions that you can take, which help you um, look at that feeling, and which help you in this sense beat or transcend that guardian. There's
This
therapy, there's talking to like-minded people like we're doing now.
oh, then this just makes me want to bring in that, like, that all relates to inner alchemy, and you know, the alchemy of the soul, and like, you know, being able to go through some of these processes, um, refine some of these substances that you can bring with you to make your potions. You know, like you create these magical items, these and these sacred objects to take with you, like, um, and they end up constituting your strength and your endurance, and um, you know, your intelligence and your wisdom, and you know, increase all these attributes within yourself. And like, and you know, the alchemist's gold, you know, that's the fine stuff. You want to carry that in a pouch on your hip when
I
you're
think
on
what
that.
happens in a way is that the alchemical language and all that is so poetic and so incredible, that for the perhaps for the uninitiated, or for people who haven't had the chance to confront that fear or that self-judgment, etc., um, we can like look at that poetic language and think, oh, so these people might be going against this incredible whatever whatever. And perhaps it's just that the person going through this alchemy and talking about all the symbols and all that, he just has a bad temper that he can't control, and he
Hmm.
always lashes out at his wife or whatever. And the internal alchemy that he's doing is not that he's beating this supreme being or something like that, as much as it is he's learning to focus his energies in the correct place, and basically not scream at his wife when dinner is cold or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something I do myself. I mean, my wife and I, we get into arguments sometimes. You know, I love her. She is beautiful and amazing, and she's like on the same page as me. You know, which I'm so incredibly thankful for. But I mean, we're
Yeah, cold
married.
dinner,
We get,
never. Please, no, don't do that.
you know.
Unacceptable.
So we, what's that?
Unacceptable. Cold dinners, never.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, like, you know, we get into arguments and stuff, and like, I don't always react in like, you know, I'm not always, oh, I'm a, I'm a human being, you know. So, but yeah, that's one of the things, exactly how um I've applied it, is that you have to recognize in that moment when that comes up. That's that initial feeling about how you want to react emotionally, that's the prima materia. That's the original core substance that you have to take, and you have to shape that into the philosopher's stone. And that prima materia is that negativity, or that emotion that you want to be an asshole. And um it's about recognizing that in the moment. And it's not easy, but it's not impossible. And it just takes a little bit of self-awareness, and um one and a little bit of work. And you, in those moments, you learn to put some fire to it, and you burn away those impurities of that emotion, of that negative whatever is going on. You put that alchemical fire to it, and you burn away those impurities, and you change the substance. And there's a couple different colors that are primarily associated with alchemy, and that's black, white, and red. And um, you want to burn it till it's black, and so you're able to eventually pull out that white and that red. And for me, like that, like the red was always like the heart. And um that's the desirous outcome, and that's the doing that inner alchemy is, changing those things. So, because how we're brought up, and I guess maybe it's by nature that um we we live in a reactionary way for the most part, that we're going through life and we're going through the world, and we're just reacting to everything. And a lot of people don't pay any attention or have any awareness of how they react. They just allow themselves to react. There's no control over it. Like, oh, I automatically hate this, or um, I automatically will think this way about something whenever it pops up in conversation or whatever. And um, that inner alchemy is becoming aware of taking that initial thing when it does pop up, and forming it and forging it into something uh, beneficial for yourself, and to do it so it doesn't rule you. You are the master of it. And that's, you know in a lot of these alchemical texts, um they talk about Hermes and being the father of philosophers. And um uh in a narration I recently did, that it was Mary the prophetess. She was, in fact, the first, I guess, famous alchemist was a woman. And um dealing with the vessel of Hermes. And so that, you know I love the alchemical text for the words and the symbolism used. A lot of this stuff was supposed to be literal, of course, but um, it's so easily applied to in other ways. And a lot of people have interpreted it in different ways. But the things that I get, like this vessel of Hermes, and this is the heart, and this is like, or your rib cage. And that's where these transformations take place, when you are doing that inner alchemy, and um, getting to that point where you have that self-awareness, and you are the alchemist, and you are involved with the process, and actually doing the work, instead of just letting yourself react this way or that way. And um and that, that's and, and and I think it's also equivalent to uh shadow work, and working with your shadow. And acknowledging and recognizing your shadow. A lot of people think it's so ambiguous, doing shadow work or whatever. Like, what does that really mean? I think it's equivalent to like the inner alchemy thing, because, you know, throughout history, the alchemists had to work secretly, and they had to work in the shadows. And that's why everything was symbolic in nature, through the terminology used, through the pictorial symbology, all that stuff, you know, so they wouldn't be prosecuted for doing witchcraft or what have you, that it was all done, you know, secretly. It was still in the open, but, you know, it was done in a shadow way. So I don't know. I got off on one of my little rants here. So
But it's great. It's very much connected to everything we were speaking. I think we go we go we go along through life, um, from our you were talking about doing things in like autopilot or automatically, without any awareness of what we are doing and how we are reacting to everything, how we are reacting. And those reactions come from our shadow, they come from the subconscious, and they come many times from wounds that have been there since we were small kids, because something, we experienced something, we our young mind interpreted it in, or gave it a certain meaning, and then projected that meaning out in the world. And so since then everything has been reflecting, or everything has been interpreted by our minds in a way to conform with that belief. And so um, we we are unaware of that belief, because it's like if you were wearing, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, it's happened to me more than once, that I'm wearing sunglasses for so long that I forget I'm wearing them, and then you take them off and the world is a different color, and you're like
yeah.
confused for a second, right? And I think it's very similar to that. Like, we're so used to thinking that the world is a certain way, and being like, even more than thinking, we are absolutely certain. There is no doubt, there is no room for or openness for any other possibility. Like, the world is this way. And and when you start with the inner work, with the inner practices, when you start doing all of this, at certain points, through grace, through who knows what the original cause of this, of those enlightening moments is, but through grace, let's say, you get glimpses of the world being different than what you thought, and being different than your wounds were telling you. And I think that's why we were talking about shadow work and how important it is. I think that working with our shadows is one way, like the inner alchemy of working to bring into consciousness, into light, the wounds. And this connects also to what we were talking at the start of observing ourselves, because that's definitely the same thing. Again, it's there's this quote by Jung of making the shadow, of making the unconscious conscious. Yeah, you know, you probably remember the quote better than I do, but it's again the same thing. It's that thing that you do unconsciously, start looking at it, and and just the power of looking at it will transform it if it needs transforming. It's like,
Yeah.
don't waste your energy in, I mean, you can waste all the energy doing anything, but wasting energy or applying energy into trying to change it seems to paradoxically fuel the thing to eternity, because it's like if you focus in, like, there's these ideas in the stuff about manifesting, that, for example, you say affirmations, but you don't say I want money, for example, because then you will always be frozen in the stance of wanting money, and the universe will attract to you the want of money, and you will always want, so you will never have. So instead you change it and you say, I have, and you start living from the thing that you want, not from the desire of it, something like that. And I think this is similar.
Yeah, something very in line with what we are talking about in this very moment, um, is a quote from the Gospel of Thomas, and it's just it falls exactly in line with the Jungian way of kind of going about this, of bringing forth the unconscious, and acknowledging the shadow. So the quote is, if you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. And I think that's, I mean, it says it all right there. Like that's like one of the most key pieces of wisdom, I think that there is ever.
Definitely, the end of suffering is in your hands.
Yeah.
It's 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 all in how you interpret uh, what happens. And I mean, it's okay to feel stuck. It's not that, okay, so I have to interpret everything positively. No, it's also allowing yourself to look at things perhaps case by case, and being okay with, okay, so today I was angry. Okay, so you can maybe make a list at the end of the day, and write perhaps how many times you yelled at your wife, or how many times you got pissed because the dog, I don't know, took a crap in some place that he shouldn't, or I don't know, and start like becoming conscious of that. And and it, many times I know I can fall very much in, when practicing certain exercises, I can fall very much in the thing of structures. So I'll be like, oh, okay, so I have to write this down, and then some day comes that I don't do it, and I'm like beating myself up because I didn't do it. But then I remember, and I've been lucky enough to learn this lesson already. I remember, okay, so it's not so much about doing the exercise religiously and you cannot miss a day. It's more of having the intention of this growth. And this phrase, um, I'm blanking right now the word. It's the spiritual responsibility, you know. So this implies uh, as much the good and the bad, you know. So yeah, do the practices, but also don't be too hard on yourself if you miss a day or whatever, or if one day you explode, because it's not that you're going to eliminate all your humanity through doing
Yeah.
practices. You will bring to light what needs to be seen, or
Yeah.
polished.
And I think, I mean, I haven't reached the end of my life yet, but I do have the notion that, shadow work never ends. Shadow work is, all the way into the last moment. Um, Doing that inner alchemy all the way to the last moment. You know, you can become a master in certain ways, um, but it's always the work. It's always going to be there, I think. And but I will say maybe it's easier, instead of ignoring it your entire life and letting it go.
And
And
also with practice, I believe you start seeing certain patterns in yourself,
yeah,
and you can start kind of anticipating. And before, so yesterday it was really easy for me to explode, but now, since I've been looking, uh, it's easier for me to see the explosion up ahead, you know, in a way, so I can modify my course before I reach that explosion. And then the work becomes, okay, what is the best way to modify my course? So perhaps you will start um, like, okay, going out for a walk before you explode, but then perhaps you will learn how to speak about what you're feeling instead of just uh, going away and coming back. You're able to stay in the thing and and work through it without exploding. And you eventually, I mean, it's everything is it's so complex, so subtle, and at the same time
Yeah.
that it's hard, it's also beautiful. And it's the work, it's what we're here for. It's
Yeah.
to I mean, I listen to myself, and I don't mean to sound like I know it all, or like I'm somewhere I'm not, because I still struggle with I have a Scorpio moon. I blame it on the Scorpio moon. I'm very sensitive, and many times I can get kind of mopey, or I can get kind of like offended for nothing or for something, but I'm not able to articulate at the moment why that thing is actually something important. I mean, it's a beautiful work, because what you're doing is learning who you are.
Yeah.
And there's like I've been exploring this idea that there's a great secret at the end of that exploration, or not at the end, but at some point of that practice, of that exploration, there is a big secret, a big reveal. Perhaps what you were saying before, that you, with your mind, you were connecting all the dots, and you were getting to some kind of a unified theory of everything. and and perhaps the way to reach it is through, yeah, through the alchemy of the heart, of the which implies sometimes going down rabbit holes and exploring them.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to bring that back and then send it from up here to the center of your chest, and okay, there's people doing bad things in the world. Okay, I don't need to be absolutely angry about it all the time, and exploring all those subjects all day. I can just accept that that's the way it is, that there's nothing I can do right now in the way that I would like, perhaps, but I can accept this. I can accept that anger inside me. I can accept that, okay, and then perhaps look and see, okay, what can I do in in myself and in my environment to start helping. And nowadays, with the internet and all the social media stuff, it's so much easier to, once you do the inner work, or or an important part of your inner work, to start expanding that that frequency around you. You know, you're
Hmm.
sharing lots of great information, you're sharing music. I'm doing similar things. I'm doing these conversations. um, when we start helping others around us, it's slowly, I mean, if a screen has like one broken pixel, or many broken pixels, I don't know, if you start repairing one pixel at a time, there's eventually all the pixels will be what they need to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe don't get too attached that perhaps some of the pixels will always be broken. I don't know.
And that's the whole, that's the whole trick, though, is to get yourself out of the rabbit hole too, um, because it's, I think you might have seen it, but I know I've seen it numerous times and continually, is people going down the rabbit hole, but they never come back up, and becoming obsessive, or latching on to things, and it becomes their whole worldview, or their whole entire worldview centers around whatever it might be, and they're snagged, they're caught in the rabbit trap. you know Rabbit holes are down there, yeah, but they're lined with rabbit traps,
Mm.
and you'll never find your way out again if you're not careful. And so you have to, I think, ideally, having that inner work done before venturing in, um, you know, is helpful, to extremely valuable. But in the same sense, many times you don't even know about the inner work until you get down in the rabbit hole. You know, Sometimes you have no clue about that inner work until you're in those tunnels. And then the other thing I want to say too is that I think a lot of people get in, especially in the overall, like maybe like spiritual community, that um, there is like an over focus um, on, like, the kind of love and light kind of thing, and where any feelings of negativity, people want to shut out or get rid of. And like, for me, like, that inner alchemy of transforming like a negative reaction into a beneficial or positive reaction, doesn't mean I'm going to dismiss part of me that is angry. And I'm not saying it for that thing specifically, but I don't know if you listen to Mark Passio at all, but he bring up the concept, a while back, about righteous anger, and that there's a place for it all. And you know, um, I just think that in the overall spiritual community, so many people discount like the feeling of that rage, um, because that itself can be a tool and beneficial. But everything is about how you use it and how you focus it. And it's not about like every time like I get mad about something that it's unjustified, that I have to turn it into, oh, everything's okay now, or like, I love everybody. It you know um there's a degree of self-preservation that has to remain, otherwise you become a doormat. And I don't think anybody wants to be a doormat and let the world walk over them, you know um and that there's enough injustice in the world, especially high at the top, that um the use of righteous anger should be applied by people across the world. And like it, you know, all this stuff that we've seen going on, um, there's a lot of righteous anger, but it quickly gets co-opted and shifted and used and abused in a way that it's no longer righteous. It's just selfish anger. And that's, I see a lot of that happening right now, and it's misdirected. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that like, I always hear um, people in the so-called spiritual community, talk about like, positivity and changing your negative feelings into love, and this, um, that's all great. But there's also that, if we don't have our shadow, what are we working on? It just goes back to us. We don't want to be automatons in a, you know robots in some kind of machine universe that, uh I was just listening to Alan Watts again last night, and like, he was talking about, like, if you come across, if that's what you think, and you discount all this stuff, you discount the spirit, and then there's only one philosophical question: is that, should you kill yourself or not? Like, should you commit suicide? And that's what he brought up as, like, if you become with a mindset that, um, a materialist mindset, and you discount it, and I don't know, I'm kind of like getting lost in all this, but you know, if you're not doing the work, what are you doing? And if you're not trying to better yourself in some way, what are you doing? You know, it's it, I guess I want to maybe just sum that up, that the negative is all part of the whole. The darkness is all part of the whole. The shadow is part of the self. It's part of us. it's integrated. It ain't coming out, you know, that that's the thing that's integrated the most within us. And just, I don't know, I get I listen to like some of these YouTube gurus sometimes, and stuff that, like, I think whatever's coming out of their mouth is a load of shit. And where they talk about, and it's one of those things that really aggravates me, man. um but and how they just want to discount and discredit that there's anything negative or dark within the self that has no value. I mean, to me, like, it all has value. It's just, how do you apply that? How do you integrate that into the work? You know. So I don't know. I was just kind of like riffing on that and stuff, man. But it was a point that I just wanted to make about. Um, I
Yeah,
think a lot of people forget.
righteous anger was kind of a key word in what you were speaking just now, and it reminded me of um, this Buddhist teacher. I don't want to say his name wrong, but Trungpa Rinpoche. Rinpoche. Um, he had also this idea. It's similar of idiot compassion. So it's like when you become kind of a door. What do you call it? A doorstep?
A doormat.
A doormat? Yeah. Uh, the idiot compassion, when you're, oh yes, 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 you allow everything, and you allow any kind of behavior, because you have to be positive, you have to have compassion for the other person. But it comes a point when he calls it idiot compassion, when it's like it's not good for you to be like that all the time, and there is room for righteous anger. uh, I'm not sure how how evolved we are as a collective of humanity nowadays, in order for us to to activate our righteous anger powers. uh,
I don't think so at all.
yeah,
Really.
like you said,
I,
it's very easily taken of course.
well, I was just going to say, it's as a collective consciousness, I can't see it really working. It's too easy to be um, messed up. There's, too easy to be co-opted by people with other agendas. So the righteous anger, I think, is most effective, possibly from just the individual, at least at this point in our cultural history, that um, you can't activate that righteous anger when the majority of the people haven't done like that inner work. You know, it's inaccessible. They may have a notion of righteous anger, but um, to be able to hold on to that as a tool for an indefinite period of time, no, like, it
It
too
requires a very clear, like very clear and stable heart before.
yeah.
Really, you need to have done lots of work. I don't know, even at a personal level, how many of us might be. Uh, some of us might be able to use that tool in a very specific kind of thing, because it's happened so many times that we've completed perhaps the work on that specific thing. But I don't know that I, for example, would be able to apply that tool very regularly. I would be wrong most of the time, for sure. And I mean, there's this story about Jesus going into the temple. I think it's in the Bible, going into
Hmm.
the temple and getting angry with the I think it's people that are trading inside the temple, so they are like profaning the sacred or something like that. And in that
He
case,
flips over the tables and
he gets totally pissed.
yeah.
And it's an example that shows that what we might say an enlightened person can also be angry. It's not that spirituality, or that the spiritual journey is the journey of eliminating anger or eliminating the dark side. It's a journey of integrating of transforming, like you said, the blackness into sparkling whiteness of uh of freedom. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think um, anybody trying to access that and use it um, is probably best off, at least, you know, early on, um, using it for like creative endeavors. Um,
Mm,
I that's some of the music I do is very very aggressive, um, and a lot of people might not be familiar with that stuff of mine, but um, every once in a while, there's stuff that I really direct, just that pissed off, just entirely fed up with the shit, and you want to rage, and just to be able to focus that, even if it's just for 30 seconds into something, to feel it. If I can raise the hair on the back of my neck from my own thing afterwards, then I feel like it's worked. You know, and the same goes for anybody like working with it, to put it into art and to put it into poetry, or um, putting it into music, putting into whatever, a creative focus, because I think overall it's with culture at large, art in general is what helps change the course of things, you know. And I mean, art is used against us um, all the time for social engineering, film and music. All these things are, you know, innately used against us, and have been for decades. And so, by being able to do the self work, the personal work, and then integrate that into a creative outlet as well, and being able to somehow encase it within that, and to integrate it within that work, you're able to like draw it out and externalize it and manifest it in a way that stays, and that then resonates, and then you can use that to other people that might trigger them into having their eyes opened, or to feeling something, or questioning something where it never would have happened before, but it's through that expression, that creative expression. So I think with righteous anger, that's probably like the best focus to put it into, unless we're fighting all the whole shit house goes up in flames, and we're taking on the world government and stuff like that. We're not at that point yet, but for right now, let's just do some art. you know
I think that's an awesome suggestion to look at that dark side of spirituality, or that dark side of our soul, that shadow, to look at it as a source of energy that through the work can be transformed into something positive. So what better way of transforming your shadow than using whatever your darkest thing you're feeling, using that as a source of energy to create something positive in the world, or even not positive in the sense of, I mean, it can be positive even if it's uh, like you were saying, aggressive music, for example. I mean, positive in the constructive, perhaps, would be the word, like to create. I mean,
yeah, well, I
rather
think
than
anything that, sorry,
rather
I
than
just
keep,
just to
yeah. Mhm.
interrupt you, that anything that you create, like with authentic intention, is positive, no matter what form it takes, no matter what it states or what it says, or um it can be the darkest piece of art that you can imagine, or the the most depressing poem or lyrics to a song that you can imagine. It's all positive, because as long as it's done with authenticity and like a true intention in order to express your soul and express yourself. So sorry,
No, it's
just wanted
perfect.
to.
Instead of keeping it inside, allowing it to come out, because yeah, in a way that those depressing lyrics could reach somebody who needed to hear those words, and those words start a kind of process within them that helps them eventually feel better, and eventually start doing the work uh, in themselves, and then those people might eventually help somebody else and somebody else. So yeah, doing things with what's the word you used, with authenticity, correct?
Yeah,
Doing that, it's awesome. Hey Matt, this has been such a great conversation. I love
totally.
how you um, bring out this part of me that's uh, like you help me reflect on my path, on the stuff I've encountered along my own, let's say, limitations I've encountered along the way, my own guardian of the threshold, and and you help me like look at these things with new eyes, and you help
Oh,
me
same
put them
here.
in words and in coherent expression that hopefully might reach somebody else. And if it's just between the two of us, I mean, really, talking to you helps me a lot to become more uh, to become lighter. So yeah, thank you so
Yeah.
much for this.
No, no, for real, man. It's the same thing goes for me, and like, that's why I brought it up to you, early, right away when we jumped in on the video here. That you know, and we talked a little bit about, but just being able to communicate um, informally. And that's what I think we were doing. And there is no set direction. It's just like, well, let's see where it goes. And not, it's been like an hour and a half now of just us talking and stuff. And like, and for me to be able to um, bounce things off of you and express things to you that I'm feeling or going through um, in within these topics, um, kind of helps me to process. Like I internalize a lot of this stuff because, um, you know, most of us are in some type of isolation right now, and a lot of us don't um, interact this way in this type of fashion. And a lot of times it's just a couple words on a screen on your social media or whatever, and that's the majority of what people do. And that's no way to like um, get through anything, I don't think. Like, especially with what the world is going through at large right now, and what people are then also having to deal with on an individual basis because of these things and these ramifications. And um, it's just um, it's just a really good thing that to be able to, like I said, bounce things off of each other. And like, part of the reason I also contacted you to talk again too was like, maybe like this, like I was like hoping, I'm like, because of what I'm going through, that this will trigger something for me. And like it'll help me to um pick up the reins again, and jump back on the path to have another go at the guardian. You know, I'm like ready to fight again.
I was muted. It's
Yeah.
so empowering, or so inspiring. Your openness to share so honestly where you're at, and something I'm in the process of learning every day is how vulnerability is one of our powers. We've been taught it's weakness, but I mean, we are all vulnerable, but allowing ourselves to show that vulnerability, that's real power, because how many people don't show it when we are all vulnerable? And
Yeah.
so if so very few people show it, it it's very clearly a power that we have. And and you are a strong person if you allow yourself to be vulnerable, because it's one of those things we were speaking, like a feel, it's a kind of a guardian as well. It's a feeling that that's like, okay, don't open up. And if you do open up, on the other side, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, it's, I was saying, it's inspiring, you know, how much you open up this way. Really,
Well, I
you,
think in general, a lot of people need to hear that kind of thing. I think there's a misconception that, like, you know, people on a spiritual path, like, you get to a certain point and then it's all bliss, you know. um and it doesn't, you may feel it, but it doesn't last. And you know, there's ebbs and flows with it, within everything. There's ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, and you're going to go through every kind of emotion. You're going to go through every kind of um, thought and sensation about the world and yourself and your place in it. And you know, this is just where I'm at. I've been through exceptional periods of, like, absolute awe and wonder at the world, and like what I've learned and have experienced and have felt. But I'm at a point right now in this moment that, you know, I've encountered the guardian, I think.
mhm.
That's just what it feels like. And um, I've been set back on my journey, just, you know, for whatever reason. You know, I don't know yet. And you know, I keep observing the world to, like, give me some kind of sign about reconnecting or whatever. But you know, it's still about, um, like I said, in relation to this, when I would hit certain peaks at times, is that you just carry on. You chop wood, carry water, you keep going. And it,
You
you know,
said,
because
and you said, sorry to cut you off, you
yeah.
said earlier at the start, I think, how you were like looking for, and you just reminded me of that, how you were sort of looking for something external to reignite that thing within you. So you decided to, for example, reach out to me and have this conversation. And in a way, if you look at it, uh, we usually are looking for something outside to help us. But just let's just look at this example. You were looking for something outside, but you took the step uh, of for example, reaching out to me. and and you were just kind of having a some clarity that perhaps this conversation would ignite something within you, right? And perhaps it does. I hope it does. but but in fact, the initial cause of this was some urge within you. Something within you already feels ready for that, for beating that guardian, and for taking that quantum leap. And that place inside you is what what inspired you to reach out, I think. So perhaps we do get
Yeah.
something external to help us, but the choice or the decision to look for it is always internal. Mm.
Yeah, I agree. And like, and kind of similar to that, you know, me talking to you, you talking to me, you know, we're really just talking to ourselves. You know, like, that's really how it is. Like, I'm looking at you and I'm speaking to you, but it's really to me. And um I mean, we're all part of each other, and we all share this world. And um you know, we're all part of the great one divine thing. And so in that sense, when I talk to you, I'm talking to myself. I'm giving myself advice,
Mhm.
being able to verbalize it in a way that I don't look crazy sitting in the bathroom talking to myself in the shower or something. So, but being like, we're all different aspects of one another, of the great thing that's out there that has no name and has no form, and we don't know what it is, but we're all part of it. And so, like everything that we engage in today, and um, you've been having some really awesome guests on your show, and I watched most of the Robert Bonomo show already and stuff, but all these things, all these engagements and interactions are all within ourself. These are all aspects of ourself just trying to figure shit out. So
Yeah, that's why this greeting of Namaste is, it's exactly, that's what it's talking about. It's recognizing that oneness between all of us.
yeah.
So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Matt, for
Namaste then.
coming back. Namaste. And please, I mean, this has been a very deep conversation. We've gone to very powerful places. Um, I don't want to just cut it off, but just for time's sake, let's please, would you share with everybody where people can find you? Uh,
Sure.
Perhaps talk a little about your music. I loved the one you made this. I think it was. I don't know if you've done it before. This kind of lo-fi hip hop with
Oh, yeah, that was a first time kind of
beat
thing for
boutique,
me.
some esoteric beat
Yeah,
boutique. Yeah,
yeah.
that was a really good one. I loved it. I'm exploring some music kind of like with beats and stuff like that, and that inspired me also. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that I was just playing around and seeing what I could do, and like I always love samples of, like from movies or whatever. So this time I was like, well, maybe I'll do something. I mean, I like listening to a lot of that lo-fi hip hop stuff, like just straight beats and a lot of crackling of vinyl and all that, and I like that kind of stuff. And so I was just experimenting and trying to play around with some of that, and I was like, well, throw in a bunch of samples from different like lectures from, like Manly P. Hall and um, Joseph Campbell and Alan Watts. Like so I threw like samples in there, and like so it's like, I guess maybe it's kind of in a way like uh, a higher elevated consciousness type beat. So it's something to dig on with that. But yeah, like I got all kinds of stuff. I'm very experimental. I don't like being put in a box about any one thing, whether it's my opinions on something or whatever art I create. I don't like limits or bounds. So you'll you'll hear me experiment with dark ambient drone music, and then um, bone crushing doom metal or something. That I'm into it all, and it's just finding whatever way in the moment that is conducive to what I want to express. And then so yeah, and if anybody else wants to check anything out, I guess mostly on YouTube, Altrusion Grace Media, and just do a search for that, and I got a whole bunch of stuff, whether you're into listening to audiobooks of the esoteric kind, or checking out the music I got or whatever. um, that's where I'm at.
Very nice. Thank you once again, Matt. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll be surely talking again soon. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye bye.